Okay, let us continue with living in the new 4D reality under the new 4D directives. And in video 4, I talked about outdoor activity, and I kind of covered the bases on the level that I can for now, meaning that if you do go out and exercise, you will respect the rules of the fields that are out there, so to speak. And of course, if you have older types of fourth dimensional energies and regress genetics, you will, when you go outside, you will then be balanced in and aligned with the retirement program of the fallen fourth cycle timelines. So that also implies why it's so important that we learn to clear this out, because as our reality will resurface after the winter period, and the sun will come back in, then it will be either under the new 4D programs or it will be under the retirement fallen fourth cycle programs. Either or. So if you have genetics that are aligning with the fallen and dying out fourth cycle timelines going back to the reseeding after the fall of Atlantis, and everything that were under the old world order program, well, then that's what you will align with when you go outside. You will be under the old heaven and part of the old earth. But if you're part of the new directives and the new programs, again, in the fourth dimension as a test, those who are in the fourth dimension on the what we call the new reality programs under the new heaven and the new earth, you know the saying, they will be tested, all the way through and through until they manage to recreate the pentachromosomal feature within their own energy system. And I'm going to talk about the biosciences that goes with what we could do in exercise and when we are outside, and how we can connect to our version of the original fifth cycle network and what we can rebuild from that. But I will of course also cross into what they're expecting of us to be able to create ourselves, because they're already running their lineages that have been artificially upgraded, hence the modulation technologies. The rest of us that choose to do it under the holographic metaverse progressive races, we must build it ourselves. They're not giving anything for free here. Either you do and you follow the directives and you create what you need to create, then you are allowed to continue, or you will be sucked back into the world that has fallen with the old worlds that were under the Progressive Council. It's fair enough. Things are changing. This is how it goes when reality shifts hands. So with that understanding, there will be some of you that will later on just say, yeah, I'm going to do the new or the future human communities and be part of that. And then you'll be pulled in and you'll be recreated and wiped and recalibrated and arranged and remodulated and whatever to fit their programs. And then that's it. And then you're there. And for some of you, that will be the best solution. Here we are in this weird in-between stage where there is no good, there's no bad. Now it's just a matter of who wants to continue, who wants to do the transition, and how do you want to do the transition. And how you want to do it is all depending on how far you have gotten your progression work, how well you're mastering the transformation of energy, and how well you are mastering the patterns of change, and how well you are mastering the reconstruction work of your energy system. And all of that falls back into what we could say, how far you got in the original Pillar Project, or how far you got under the solar wishes in their non-aggressive, non-hostile worlds, of which some of you came here as part of the Atlantean Project to be the supervisors or the teachers of the fallen humanoid lineages. So that all depends on who and what you are and what your original position was. If you came here under the old world order or the hijacking races, most of you will be part of the regressed races. Most of you will never have been beyond the fourth dimension. You won't have the capacity for the fifth. And then perhaps the solution to go along with the modulation program of the new earth and new heavens might be a solution for some of you. I'm not saying for all of you, and I'm not advocating for it, because technically it goes against the progressive dynamics, the way we do it in the progressive world. We don't use technology to upgrade upgrade ourselves. We do it the good old-fashioned way. But now it's been said, because some of you will stand in that choice, and some of you will then do what you have to do because that is what you have got the capacity of. But be mindful of manipulation. As always, when I say this, remember the parasites are listening in as well. Everything on the fallen cycles of the fourth cycle, the fallen timelines, the decaying timelines of the fourth cycle, they are getting that information as well, because some of you are connected to that. And then you hear this, and then they hear this, and then they will tell you, oh, you're part of that program. Oh, you're part of that program. You just need to do this and that, whatever, because I here told you that you will hear it from within. So again, this will also show your mastery of energy. And that's also why when I talked about in the other course material of the Changemakers about inflation and how high you position yourself to be, as in thinking you are higher up than you actually are. And that feeling of always being better than you are is a clear sign of parasitic interference. So you kind of need to be humble in this work and always perceive yourself as if you have a lot to learn, as if you have a lot to master, as if you have a lot of work to do, instead of thinking you've done, I'm good. Well, that's parasitic. So with the ones that are going to be part of the modulation programs, or coming back to the holographic metaverse of the D13 collective, to use Alex Collier's expression, they will have to eat crow. Seriously, because we just touched ground with some of the issues of the ill-mindedness of the D13 collective races, is that they will not accept that they have failed. They will not eat crow and come back on their knees with their hat in their hands and their bleeding knees. Literally, it has to be like that. And they have to undergo some pretty severe testing and some pretty severe challenges and some pretty severe energy work to be able to come back in. And they have to prove over a very long period of time that they are sincerely interested in returning to the holographic metaverse. So also the progression sciences have been given there, but even though people begin doing this, it's not the same as you get the green card. I talk about that in the whole philosophy book. Nobody is accepting people with a high degree of malfunctioning genetics anymore. It's over. It's done. That was the fourth cycle. That has failed. Now we all move on. Either you make it or you don't. And if you don't, you will have to accept the circumstances that you have created for yourself. And that in itself, to see things as they truly are, will be the beginning of the healing, because there you will go against the perverted perception of who and what you are, and begin to understand what you actually are and how much work you have to do. You have to eat crow. You have to acknowledge that you are probably not that marvelous being that you thought you were, and you are everything but, and how much work you have to do. And then begin the humble, patient work where you get the rhythm in everyday life, you get the discipline in everyday life, you change the ways how you live, you adhere to, and here you will have to adhere to the laws unconditionally. You choose the highest good of the many unconditionally. You do whatever you need to do unconditionally, without expecting anything coming out of it other than you having put your foot on the path to get back to the holographic metaverse. And there will be no second chances, and there will be no kindness, and there will be no circumstances where someone will look at you and pat you on the shoulder and say, you did good. You will have to do it on your own accord, and you will have to understand when you're doing good and when you're not doing good by the effects of the path itself showing to you that you have done good by you getting more and more visual content. You will get more and more inner instructions of how to do this. You will align more and more with the principles. You will align more and more with the rules of engagement, and you will not think of it. It will not be a thought process where you do a conscious choice. It will become part of your subconscious. It will be the natural thing in the world that whatever comes your way, you will always choose the highest purity rate, the highest standards, and the highest progression rate. That's how you will see if you are progressing. If it comes as a voice inside your head, it's either parallel universal matrix or parasitic, or whatever's going on within the new races that are coming in, or whatever you're having, or part of the new 4D directives. But you will see the cube and you will understand what it is, and it will not be something you will not have doubt. You will know exactly what you're dealing with, and you will see there is an effect of it. Something will unfold, something will happen when these cubes come in, and you will understand that in different ways and forms, especially if you go outdoor. Then they will come in and they will scan you, and you will get the information of either you're allowed to go out or you can go back in because you are not pure enough to be out in this reality, or you won't feel a damn thing because you have aligned yourself with the fallen grid work and networks of the full cycle. So there are no clear-cut things here anymore. As you begin the true work, you will understand that the only thing you can rely on, the only one you can rely on is yourself, and even that you can't trust. Being humble in this work is probably the most important thing. So that is also part of why so many of the D13 collective were not capable and able of continuing and completing the Pillar project, because they did not have that in them to be humble in the work. On the contrary, that was the genetic flaw they brought with them from the previous universal cycle, and that's what led them to, I'm not going to let go of all the power and all the mastery I've gained, including the ones calling themselves ascended masters. It just ring in there, doesn't it? And that goes to the planetary hierarchy and the Great White Brotherhood. Just rings there, right? Ascended masters, giving themselves that title. D13 collective, we kind of know the trend of that one. So with the new kind of program releases, and in that, I think I have covered the basis of the need for global shift in human self-promoting paradigms. I think I covered that already. So, but let me just read through it so you kind of get that's the one. The problem is not the lack of new innovations or complex information systems to solve the environmental crisis and the pending challenges of humanity. The problem lies within humanity in the lack of willingness to collaborate among the different groups and factions to find the political and financial solutions that could change our reality into a productive and sustainable reality field where entropy and energetic decay no longer prevails as the general dynamics. And this should be completely clear to you with what I've explained so far. There's also a lack of will to provide with the needed investment from the 1% that has gathered wealth beyond what they need as individuals. This wealth should be invested in new technology and environmental solutions for the betterment of all. Global investment plans should be produced with a return rate measured in grades of planetary environmental activity for a future for all. That's probably the most important thing that we need to put in our cards when we begin to think about creating a business inside what's left of this reality under the new 4D directives. Businesses and moneymakers should use this as a tool for consumers to choose their products and innovations instead of the trade-offs of the carbon dioxide usage and whitewash of carbon dioxide emissions, etc., as we're seeing now. Everybody's been trying to bend the rules around how they could continue the old way of producing things by making these similar as we saw it with the church, actually, with the time of Luther back in the Middle Ages, where everybody was buying off their sins by putting money into the church. They were actually buying, I don't know what it's called in English, but they were buying a piece of paper where they had got granted from the church that because they have donated so and so much money to the church, they would have first and foremost a place on the graveyard, but they will also have their sins would be forgiven so they could come into heaven. And thirdly, they would get a position within the heavenly hierarchy according to how much money they have paid. That was going on in the Middle Ages in Europe. Crazy shit, right? No wonder Luther kind of went against this and tried to reform everything. But that play out is still what the Puritans took with them to America. So therefore, you're seeing it's the same traits in the Church of America, right? And I'm calling the Church of America, with whether they're Protestants or Lutherans, or there are not many of them, or 7 days, whatever, Adventurist or whatever they're Pentecostal or whatever shit they're calling themselves. Doesn't matter. It all comes from that bunch. And that's why they went to America, because they wanted to connect money and church and heavenly power with earthly power, as they were this misguided worshipper lineages that goes far back to the Baal. So you kind of see how that one ties in. But businesses under the Baals have pushed that further into the new type of society that were created under the scavengers, saying, well, if I only pay off whatever I'm emitting of disastrous, polluterous type of energies, generating distortion and pollution around me, as long as I pay off my tax or pay off this tribute or do this or do that sacrifice or whatever, as the Baals have always said, well, then we can appease the gods and then we won't have the karma of it, the kickback. But the problem is they have destroyed the reality field they were a part of by that ideology. So it's all about, do you think you can buy your way into heaven? Do you think you can buy your way into the future and then give crap about the rest of the human population, the rest of the world, and the rest of whoever you're part of, what society you belong to? So that's kind of implied in this. That's technically the main understanding behind this directive. You can no longer buy your way out of your karma. You can no longer buy your way out of your transgression rate. You can no longer buy your way out of the tribulation you have seated in and you have applied to the reality field you're part of. Now you stand completely trialed on all of the things you have done inside this reality field. That's what that directive technically means. And that's when we go into the winter period, that will severely kick in to a lot of businesses, a lot of humans inside this reality. And that's also when we have got the restrictions in Denmark, for instance, and Germany as well in Europe, that are saying, well, during wintertime, we are cutting down the use of electric power. Of course, pushed in motion due to the cutoff of Nord Stream of Russia. But that's just a tool, because they were just waiting for a tool that would explain why they need to do this, because that's what's behind this directive. Your use of energy to keep producing items and goods and services using the old world order directive of you can use coal and petrol and gasoline and whatever that are destroying the reality field around you. These businesses will no longer have a place when the sun comes back in spring. They will die this winter, and they will die by the pull of inflation, or too large bills, or anything else that has to do with money. This is very important to understand. And that will run every year. So we kind of get these groups weeded out, and they will be pushed into the retirement program, where they will be chewed up by the entities that are thereby also, because once they are sent back into the retirement program, they will have the sigil of free prey, because you have messed up on all levels of this reality, and now it's going into evac, and now it's going into the devastation cycle. And by that configuration, you are under the Trinity 3-step of transgression, and therefore belong to the abyss. So that's what's going to happen. So we kind of, oh, wow, tough going business, right? Yes, it is. But how do you going to clean up all of these rotten branches that are a part of the human tree? Just asking. They have been given several chances over the last 2,500 years, and they have not learned to do it yet. And they are still bending the laws to their own accommodation. Always. Because they think they are so much better than everybody else, that they think they have the allowances to do this, because they either do some pretty serious dark rituals to keep up their power, or they are just buying off via tax and bending the legislations and avoiding court rules and all sorts of stuff, bending everything to their own selfish purposes. So this is coming to a completion now, because we are now all in. We learned that the last 3 years, and we are pushing it to the next level, the use of power, the electric power, but that kind of goes with correct use of energy and power, as we've talked about principle 8 and 9. And when we're now working with the correct use of energy, that is principle 8, then we are targeting the dark ones under the Orion Collective. They no longer are allowed to be inside this reality and crumble the network of energy for their polluting and distorted toroid type of facilities and businesses and machineries and whatever they have got. And that's also why Russia will pull back, because as that closes in Europe, we will no longer have affinity with it. And that means that that will be pulled out back to Russia and China, where these races will then create their headquarters. And that will be as it is, and then that will fall apart eventually. If we're talking about which continent, which part of the world will fall into the ocean or the abyss under volcanic activity first, that will be China. You're already seeing it. And then Russia. Sinkholes, they were already onto it until they really got tied into Europe, but now we're pushing them back. So they will have more sinkholes as they had in China as well. And things will begin to fall apart around them. And that will be when they leave, and then they will leave behind their human shells, which then at that point in time will be taken into consideration what to do there. Okay, so with that understanding, we also understand that when we are doing business, we have to play by the book. And I already put in the 3 videos about sustainable living and futures under renewable energy and businesses under renewable energy. So whatever we choose to do while we are in the 4th dimension, or because the base program, new base program will be in the 4th dimension, will be under the directives. And we will create businesses that supports that to the dot. You will not linger, you will not bend, you will do as you were told. Because it has a reason. It's not just for fun or because they want to prove that they have got their pants on, as we're saying in Danish, that they have got the power. It's nothing to do with that. We can only await the shift in the global human paradigm that runs on greed, service to self-orientation, and personal impetus to gain more wealth, more self-proclaimed power, and of no use, individual gains. Humans must change their political and personal paradigms into ideologies working for the collective and for the agendas that look into finding the solutions for a future on this planet. So that's kind of the directive of those of you who want to do business. It has to be within this directive as the first step. You can't do it for profit. What you create cannot pollute or add in distorted energies in any ways or forms, either physically, energetically, or code-wise, or holographically, or in any ways and forms. So that means that you as a person, your energy system must be purified, or at least under your conscious control, so that when things come into your energy system, you can clear it out as quickly as it comes in. You're always maintaining yourself. You're always transforming to the highest purity rate. Only then will you be allowed to have a business inside the new or the future human communities. It is as simple as that. And for the groups that are under the technological modulation or the modulation technology where it's done artificially, they are also being upgraded to have the highest purity rate as well with the genetic modification. And that means that they will not pollute whatsoever. We are seeing some of the kids that are there now, they will change and they will be upgraded or recloned or whatever. They will have this higher version of the 4th dimension in them. So they will carry a very high frequency. Here we can say frequency because that's the first step that will bridge between what we call the 4th dimensional density energies and the highest frequency spectrum inside this reality. And that is not X-rays or gamma rays or anything, because that's the old frequency spectrum. A new one is being seeded in with what will happen to the sun. So we will get a new type of frequencies that will allow science for discovering the holographic principles as well as the 4th dimension. So that's part of the new kids on the block. They will uphold a new version of the base program. And we will only be amongst these kids and these humans if we are on the same rate of purity. Otherwise, we belong in the retirement program. Simple as that. And I have no issues with saying that. Of course, I don't want to kind of say, well, that's sad and all this kind of go into the human emotionality, because I always knew, and I said it with the transformative energy work as well, if you want to be part of the restoration program, you have to adhere to the rules, the principles, and the laws. We are no different in the holographic metaverse. So either you follow, you play by the rule book, or you don't belong there. That's kind of the laws of the different universal structures and the different lineages. And remember, we were engineered, and we chose our own endeavors and assignments according to the laws and the rules and the principles. For us, there was no question that, of course, we follow these things. It was never up for debate, because it was completely logical for the highest good of the many. There were no other ways and options and whatever. And if we did, we knew what the consequences would be. And we could say, well, I'll try for a period of time doing something else and segregate myself. But we would always ensure that we would get back to the holographic metaverse standards, because that's where we belong, at least those of us from the D14 collective. The D13 collective, not so much, because they were still entangled with the previous universal cycle. They were the laggards. They had not understood the new rule book and the new games that they were to participate in. And they want to keep up the old ones, where they could bend and mend and do whatever they liked in different types of cycles of chaos and transformation, because that's where they strived and where they thrived, but not the D14 collective, not the seedings of the seedlings and the seedings of the D14 races that came with the new universal cycle and the new spawn out of consciousness units from the infinity field. We learned our lessons in the previous universal cycle, and we clawed our way and crawled our way all up to the highest level, where we chose to recalibrate into the new standards of the D14 collective. So we chose it. And therefore, we saw no reason to why not continue to adhere to what we had chosen, our own personal choice, before we got respawned into this universal cycle. Okay, so that's just to kind of get, for me, that it's the whole even discussing it is this, but I know some of you are having a little bit of issues with this one, so therefore I'll do it for your reason. I have no issue with it whatsoever. It has kept me going so far. And that's one of the reasons why I volunteered to come back into this reality in the versions I did, because I knew that my core was solid. I had no doubt whatsoever. It was more the ones on the solar rishis of the D13 collective that has been swayed, unfortunately, because they already kind of were not fully up to speed with the new legislations, to put it that way, of the D14 collective. And they chose to go back to participate in assisting their own races, because there were so many of them. Remember, 3 of the lineages of the 4 lineages of the 13 collective fell. So they chose to be part of that one. But unfortunately, most of the ones on the solar rishis, they succumbed to the majority of their lineages and the contamination rate of their lineages. So it is not the matter of the loss of incentives for personal gain, but a shift into understanding that personal gain should also factor in responsibility for the whole, better environmental choices in the long run, and new business models to provide for new ideas of what the profit paradigm could be in a world struggling to maintain and uphold the resources all businesses rely upon. And I hope you really understand what this means in terms of you beginning to create your own business and have business ideas, because it will be like that. We will shift out of these great or big corporations. That's part of the Baal structure, hierarchy, a tall building with a lot of departments. So Baal, it does not get more Baal than that, a hierarchy inside this reality with the CEO on the top, and then the rest adhering to the boss that is nowhere in contact with the people, little man on the floor, right? So that will, of course, cease to exist. We will have flat structures within our organizational structures. We will have more small businesses. mainly 1-2 person driven businesses, mostly 1 person driven businesses, because that's all we need when we do it on the internet. Whatever we will create and engage in will be in what we call periodical consulting or team up, where we will work together 3 months, perhaps 2 years or whatever, under some sort of retainer. It will be simple business structures, because that's all that's needed. Once we get in more and more of the 4th dimensional holographic energies into the reality of the new heaven and the new earth, so to speak, then there will be less need for all of this gadget materialistic production, because it's no longer needed. Most of the things that we have in our world today will cease to exist, and it will no longer be there, and we will arrange ourselves in environments and in housings and whatever that is changeable, adaptable, progressible. Some way or another we'll begin to create new kind of matter forms, new types of items and gadgets and whatever, of a new type of fabric that is changeable and adaptable to begin with, as an extension of what we know as 3D computing, but where you, similar as we saw in the Transformers, right, where you have something that can, if you link it up to a cube, then it can change its features holographically, and by that the physical form will change as well. That's one of the predominant features of the 4th dimension. It's upheld by its holographic grid work. And if you change that, then the physical form, the molecular state of it will change as well. So that's some of the new futures and the new future technologies that we are going to be able to participate in and take part of. And most of you that are doing the progression work, you will not be in the business of gadgets and materialistic stuff. You will be in the business of service and consulting and advice giving, as any form of counselor, consulting, or whatever it is. Consulting could be in terms of transformation of energy, for instance, for a business that are creating windmills. You would be able to go in and work with the policy and the organizational structure. How are they conducting their business? Could it be done in a better way to live up to the 4D requirements, or whatever you will choose to work as an extended in between the progressive work, as well holographic metaverse, progressive lineages, restoration program, and what you can find of a niche inside the 4D new reality field under the future human communities. Because as long as you're working to progress yourself and your surroundings, no matter how you do it, you will still live up to the directives. And the progressive humans have never, ever in any way or form supported misuse of reality field energy. So if you follow the progression work, you're almost 30%, 40% there, because you're doing it naturally. Then you just have to figure out, okay, how can you adjust this to fit in with the 4D reality program, new reality program, so that you can make some kind of earnings, whatever that means in the futures to come. So you can have a life inside the new reality program with the 4th dimension as the lowest point of existence. And at the same time doing your progression work. But we can say the more we chip in and transform what is left of the base program energy units that will be transferred into the new 4th dimension by doing our own work in our own home. And whenever we go out, we will not interfere with what they are doing, but we will transform everything that's connected to us. And by that, take our responsibility rate of transforming what's left of the old world order that some of you have existed in for a long time. So you will lift as a team and transfer what you can do to your type of genetics, including clearing yourselves. Then you will show goodwill to follow with the new directives, because you're taking personal responsibility for yourself and others and the reality field that you're part of. So with that, we begin to understand, okay, there are apparently some very, very good reasons why I have also taken the time to do the progression work, and why I've been allowed to do the progression work, because at the end of the day, it's all kind of, as long as we are on the same broadband, we are all lifting in flock, as we say it in Denmark. We are all chipping in with our different abilities and our different perceptions of reality and our different conceptions of reality, as in merging our abilities and our perception into conception, where we are tying together what we can see and what we can work with and transforming what we are accountable for and have the responsibility of. That means ourselves and our surroundings. And when we go outside, we will do it as well with whatever comes our way, so that we will not in any ways or forms interfere with the new programs, but we will also ensure that if we do have some regressed genetics left, we will be shown when we go outside our door, because it will be in our face with the humans that are around us. So how are you going to detect if you are clear enough? Well, it will all, as I said, it will kind of unfold naturally. Put it in this way. More and more times when I go out, no matter what time of the day I go out, I see no people around me. I'm kind of alone when I go out. And that's because I still have a different configuration from the retirement program, and I'm not solidified in the new world program. or the new reality program. So therefore I'm alone. But that's kind of okay compared to the last 5-6 years, where whenever I got out, I got attacked by all sorts of weird stuff coming my way. And if something is coming my way, well, then the drones come in and clear it out for me, which is kind of nice, because that's just kind of, they want me to stop being a releaser. So they have now developed technology that comes in and clean it up for me, which is kind of nice. But of course, I'm looking in that it is done. But that is how it is. So eventually it will be when I choose to go out and go for a walk or go out exercising or whatever, I will meet nobody. Not even animals or birds or anything. It will just be me and nature, which will then align me completely with the version of the Pleiadian transformative reality program, which I think is their plan. So I'll no longer have the regress races coming in and meddling and trying to get what we call the Pleiadian standards back up and running, connect to the physical female version of it. So that's kind of what I get, because I can kind of see the things that are coming my way all pull in the direction of, can we get the Lemurian network up and running in the female version of that, is the progressive worlds, and also the XX chromosome in that direction first via the Pleiadians as a bridge, and then shift it into whatever they will see fit for the future human communities, because quite a lot of the females that they are a part of their programs are of the Pleiadian lineages. So that's also playing in, of course. So as I said, nothing is given freely. So now we kind of understand the directive of personal greed, which is all about the wrongful use of energy. And that, of course, leads us into the new resource allocation directive that came in September, that is going to shift our perception of resource allocation paradigms. So we have kind of got with the self-promoting paradigms that kind of says, yeah, enough with all of you guys doing it for your own personal profit, your own personal propaganda, your own personal paradigms, your own self-promoting, which also goes with Instagram and all of this social media, see me, see me, see me, and earn money on see me, see me, see me, which is ridiculous, as in kind of just because you're an influencer, insectoid, beautiful little creature looking at and the perfect materialization of self-promoting schemes of the insectoids, that is of course also being shut down. So that will be pushed into the retirement program. And those of you who kind of have this, oh, I want to be on Instagram, I want to do Facebook and all these kind of things. Well, we'll say, well, Randy, you got 2 Facebook accounts. Yeah, the whole project is now done. And you will see I've removed the website on it. It's now only linking to the Google site. That will be the bridge. The whole advanced psychotherapy, it is still open. It is technically on a different platform. It is not part of what has become the metaverse, even though it has the same headline. But these are some of the things that you will learn when you work in the 4D. It might have the same interface system, but the energies behind might be something different. So that means that that platform, which is the whole project were built on what we call the old version of Facebook that has been turned into the metaverse. And then there is the business platform that is and will be under different groups, and that will later on be sold off from the Facebook metaverse that will then be aligned more with what we call WhatsApp and Instagram. And they are already being targeted now. So perhaps at some point I will delete the account inside the one that's called the whole project account. I will delete that one and then only have the whole advanced psychotherapy, all depending on how things are going. So we will have platforms that are in between, that will operate inside the current version of the base program, but also in the in the new reality 4D reality programs. So it all comes down to, I kind of already got yesterday that I should eradicate and get rid of my Facebook platform, the whole project. But I was a little bit cautious with that one because it had dark energy all over it. And it kind of came in the wake of the trials and everything that was going on with that one. So I'll just leave it there and see if the configuration behind it changes. And if it does so, then I'll leave it because it is part of the path out. But there are still the videos on YouTube. And if that is all that is allowed to be part of the old, because YouTube is technically part of Google and they have sections in there that belongs to the newer versions of the Google company that is also divided between different factions. So therefore, it all depends on which faction does the work I've been doing, the virtual work I've been doing, which faction will it then fall under? And if it falls under the wrong factions, then of course I delete my nodal point, my access point into that network, because that's also part of the new type of business that we will be doing, and being part of the fourth dimensional rule sets of businesses, is that we must understand that whatever we seed in, whatever it is in a social platform or it's virtual reality or the internet, it must be on the network that is aligned with the reality program that we are alignment with, so to speak, which means that the regress races have their version of it. The parallel universal matrix have their versions of it. What's left of the dark ones have their versions of it. What's left of the Baals have their version of it, etc., etc. The new reality program with the event program 5.0 will create their new platforms within the existing platforms. So they appear to be the same interface systems, but the moment you connect there, they will divide themselves into a different network from where the content on that version of Facebook, on that version of Instagram will not be transferred. But in the fourth dimension, as it is now, there will come these little there will come a new program. Sorry about that. There will come a new program where the ones, the children of the new reality program, they will find their way there, and then they will begin to focus on all sorts of sustainability and renewable energy and new way of living. And it will be a completely different platform where they will share their experiences and create their, what we call internet community, where they will across the world be able to create bridges and create networks that are necessary to share ideas as open platform services and open platform information that will be given freely for everybody to connect to, so that we can get the energies and the new sciences running quicker via the social network. But that will be what it will be about. It will not be the social cell network that is self-promoting all sorts of things. And we're seeing that on YouTube as well. There are more and more channels that are educational and that lead to free information of new types of sciences and new types of inventions, etc., etc. So these are the platforms that we will create channels within. And once that one comes up and really runs, and if I'm going in that direction, well, eventually my old platforms and my old YouTube videos and my old everything that's on the older version of YouTube will then have to be shut down, and then I'll have to create a new account and some new a new YouTube channel. So that's how we're going to do it. And somebody say, oh, it's so sad, you'll have to let go of this and that, whatever. Well, if it can't be transferred because it's too tied to the old world order program or the older timelines, We have to cut it loose as we have done with the genetics and in our timeline and clearing work. Now we're just beginning to do it inside this reality as well. Well, I've been doing it for a while, but some of you will learn to do it inside this reality as well, which I have talked about in the law of participation, and that all information systems in the Future Human Project Course 1, all information systems are tied to some sort of electronics, some type of technology, some type of faction. Everything is connected to some version of the holographic network that are connected to some sort of race. It's just how it is. Okay, we'll finish up in the next video. Thank you.